Welcome to City Hall. We'll get started this morning with our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation will be handled by Tom Harrison. He's the pastor at Hillcrest Christian Church on Southwest 59th Street. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Brian Walters to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand?
Let us be in an attitude of prayer. These things we seek, that we might believe, that we might trust in a power greater than ourselves that undergirds us all, that we might hope, believe that where challenges exist, they can be met and they can be overcome, and finally love, that we might regard all as important as significant, that we might overcome selfishness within ourselves and act out of motives which would benefit all. These things we do seek in the name of the one higher than us all. So let it be. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Katie Lawson to come up. I've lost her. Here she is. Katie, come on up. Turn around and face this fine-looking group of people. Katie Lawson is an Oklahoma City police officer, and recently she was ambushed. Her car received over 20 rounds, over 6 to 9 rounds went into her body, and we have brought her down here today, first of all, just to make sure she's really alive. This was truly God's work that kept this young woman with us. She returned fire. The assailants dropped their weapons and ran, so she saved her own life in a matter of self-defense. And we bring her down here for many, many reasons. We're obviously very, very proud of her. We're astonished at her story and the fact that she lived through it. And it's also a reminder, though, for our citizens of why we invest so much money in public safety. It was obviously the body armor that she had on that helped to save her life. So, Katie, I know this round of applause is for the appreciation of everything that you've done for us.
Well, thank you for bringing me here and recognizing me today. It's an honor, and I'm very appreciative. As a police officer, you always have this in the back of your mind that something like this may occur, but nevertheless, it's still a shock when it does happen, probably to myself and others around me. But I believe the Lord was with me that night, and He did save my life, and I know that everything happens for a reason. I do believe that. And even though such a negative act happened, I believe a lot of positive has come out of it. And one of those things is my police family. I believe that they have been very supportive during this time and have given me so much care. And all my needs have been met before I have to even ask for them. And they really have supported me and been behind me. And it's great to see that. You know that they're always there, but in a time like this, it really shows. And then another thing also is the community and other law enforcement agencies and just the people of Oklahoma City and surrounding communities and actually other states. They've just sent cards and gifts and flowers, and it's been such a blessing to me, and it's really helped me in my healing process, and it's just good to know that there's good people out there that do appreciate what police officers do. And I'm just thankful for those people, and again, for my department and the people of Oklahoma City. So thank you for having me here today and honoring me.
Next, we have a proclamation for White Cane Safety Awareness Day. I'll ask Vicki Golightly, Bob Moore, Linda Moore, and Sandy Webster to come on up. And I've forgotten the canine. Bolton, that's right. Bolton was in my office a while ago and was able to sniff the candy off the table I have in my office. Yeah, we have no dog biscuits in the mayor's office, but perhaps Bolton will inspire us to do something differently. If y'all would just turn and face the camera, we have a proclamation. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas the white cane is used by hundreds of Oklahoma City residents who are legally blind to allow them to navigate our city and access its public places, schools, and businesses. And whereas with proper training, people using the white cane can enjoy greater mobility and safety by determining the location of curbs, steps, uneven pavement, and other physical obstacles in their path. Whereas the white cane has opened the doors of opportunity to thousands of blind Oklahomans by enabling them to travel freely and independently in their communities. Whereas the white cane is now universally recognized as a symbol of blindness that improves the safety of blind pedestrians by alerting drivers when a visually impaired person is crossing a street, parking area, or other areas open to the public. Oklahoma law requires vehicle drivers to come to a full stop at least 15 feet away from a visually impaired pedestrian using a white cane or dog guide and take such precautions before proceeding as may be necessary to avoid accident or injury to the person who is wholly or partially blind. Whereas to honor the many achievements of blind and visually impaired citizens and to recognize the white cane's significance in advancing independence, the United States Congress, by joint resolution, approved October 6, 1964, as designated October 15th of each year as White Cane Safety Day. Now, therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim October 15th, 2010, as White Cane Safety Day in Oklahoma City, and he calls upon all citizens to observe this day by recognizing the significance of the white cane, both as a symbol of independence and as a simple tool that enables Oklahoma City residents with visual disabilities to participate more fully in the social and economic life of our community.
Let's show our appreciation. And Vicki, I guess Vicki, so citizens should be watching out for people with white canes.
Please do. Absolutely. I'm Vicki Golightly. That's okay. And on behalf
The dog's name right, I messed up the two of you.
we know who's important in this, don't we? On behalf of the Heartland Council of the Blind, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Cornett and City Councilmen and everyone here for recognizing the significance of the white cane and of dog guides. We are having a walk in Bricktown on Friday, October the 15th at 10:30. We'd like to invite anyone who would like to come out and participate with us. And this is an event for public awareness, and canes and dogs they're not only a tool, but they symbolize the independence that all blind and visually impaired people enjoy in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you all for coming down. I'll ask Master Sergeant Angela Shields to come forward. As you might imagine, the city of Oklahoma City has a lot of employees. We have over 4,000, and each month the South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club helps us honor one of them as our Employee of the Month, and this month's winner is the young woman to my right, Angela Shields. She's a Master Sergeant in the Police Department. Thank you very much for coming down here. She has an extremely important job, and it's one that is fairly new. It's one of the council's priorities, and that is dealing with the truancy issues in the Oklahoma City public school system. And I would, if I'd love to hand you the microphone, we'd just like a first-person account of how that's going out in the field. We get reports that are all numbers. We visited this many kids. We have this many success stories. But I'd like some personal perceptions from you, because you're out there on the front lines in this important issue.
Well, basically what we do is we go out and we talk to the parents of the students who are missing 5 or more unexcused days from school, and we try to find out why their kids are missing. Is it economic problems? Are you having other problems at home? Are they just ditching? We want to find that out because we want to help these families. We want to get these kids back in school. So I have found by going out, this is my 2nd year doing this job, and a lot of the parents really don't know that their kids are skipping school. So when we make them aware of that, they take measures to correct it. And right now, we're a little bit over 50% of getting these children back into school once the parents are aware. So we are very happy with our numbers right now. We're going to continue to help these kids.
And you were telling me in the office that there are a series of reasons why a kid might be missing school. It may not be just 1 or 2 things. Almost every case is individual.
They are very different. Some kids are being bullied at school and they don't want to go. Some kids don't have a lot of money, so they're embarrassed to go to school. And then you have those that their parents really don't put a lot of effort into them and giving them what they need, so they feel like they just need to go out on their own and do whatever it is that they want to do. So we sometimes go and we counsel with these kids, and we try to show them there is a different way. So if you stay in school and get your education, you can definitely be a better person. So
Appreciate it. We have a resolution. As the Employee of the Month, I'll have to clerk to read it.
Whereas Master Sergeant Angela Shields has been a city employee for 19 years and is a Master Sergeant in the Truancy Unit of the Operations Bureau of the Police Department. Whereas Master Sergeant Shields, before transferring to the Truancy Unit, was assigned for 5 years to the Police Athletic League, a program established in 1991 to help reduce and prevent juvenile crime that uses recreational and educational activities to help police officers form positive bonds with at-risk youth. Whereas Master Sergeant Shields worked hard to improve the PAL program so that Oklahoma City's most vulnerable young people would have the opportunity to develop meaningful relationships with police, who can also be their mentors, role models, and friends in the community, and learn skills that could help them change their lives. Whereas Master Sergeant Shields' accomplishments include opening the PAL Center, developing a strong and positive partnership with the Oklahoma City Public Schools, increasing youth participation in PAL programs, and improving PAL's administrative operations. Whereas Master Sergeant Shields was extremely devoted to the program and proudly represented not only the Oklahoma City Police Athletic League at every event she attended, but also the Oklahoma City Police Department. Whereas Master Sergeant Shields' passion for working with kids and improving their lives by keeping them away from gangs, criminal activities, and other negative elements will be recognized for years to come. Whereas his council desires to recognize Master Sergeant Angela Shields for her dedication, professionalism, and commitment to the citizens of Oklahoma City, now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Master Sergeant Angela Shields, October 2010, South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
Need a motion? And a second? All right, cast your votes. Well, how about that, Angela? It passed unanimously. Let's show our appreciation to Master Sergeant Angela Shields. Thanks so much. Very proud of you. Pat, would you like to come down here? The demands of the mayor's office are ever increasing, and to help out, we have by charter a council person that serves as vice mayor, and there are a number of duties that go with vice mayor, but so far every one of them has lived through it. And as a token of my appreciation for Pat Ryan, he has served as the vice mayor for the last 6 months. I have this pen that represents the state of Oklahoma, and I heard a lot of good things about you being out there.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. It was a real pleasure. I know I was a pale substitute for you at most of the occasions I went to, but there was a lot of great lunches, and I got to meet a lot of really fine people. I understand why you like this job. It's really good.
Now you see why I can't keep my weight down.
I understand why you went on a diet after all these lunches. But anyway, it was a great experience, and it was a real pleasure to serve on your behalf.
Well, let's show our appreciation to Councilman Pat Ryan. Thanks, Pat. And Brian is the new vice mayor.
So there's no truth to the rumor, Mayor, that Brian went through this military training to be prepared for vice mayor? That doesn't have anything to do with it at all.
Perhaps that should be required from now on. Draw your attention to the back of the council chambers. We have a group of German students who are visiting with the Classen School of Advanced Studies. Would you all stand up so we can show our appreciation to be all being here today? I learned a little bit about their program this morning. They're here for 4 weeks, and they're actually attending class while they're here, so it's no vacation. And the Oklahoma City students in June visited their families and actually stayed in the same homes in Germany. And so now the reciprocation is taking place, and so these students are here for 4 weeks. And this is their second week, and so far they love the weather in Oklahoma City. You know, we don't hear that often enough, but we appreciate you all very much. Thank you. Y'all can sit down now. I didn't mean y'all to stand the entire time. Looks like we're on item 3C of the council agenda. These are appointments for the MAPS 3 Citizen Advisory Board and the Senior Wellness Subcommittee. Comments or questions? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 3D. There she is. We are fortunate today to have the Honorable Angela Munson in our presence. She is the president of the Oklahoma City School Board. And after a series of conversations between she and I, she asked if she could come down and talk to the council about all the exciting things that are going on inside the school system. President Munson, thank you for coming down today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning to each of you, council people. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Mr. Mayor. It's very interesting when we think about education and the circumstances around which got us to this point. Some people may consider them unusual, unexpected. I really consider them a wonderful opportunity to continue the dialogue that the mayor and I have on a usual basis. Several of the council people and I talk about education in a way now to, I hope, formalize those relationships and those discussions. I want to give you just for a few minutes, and I know I only have a few minutes, a brief overview of what's going on in our district, and probably end where I'm starting. An opportunity for us to continue the dialogue, continue the relationships, continue to work collectively to make improvements in our school district. The one thing I know for sure through my conversations with the mayor and many of you and people throughout the city is that we value education. We recognize as a collective citizenry here in Oklahoma the importance of education. And we know we have to make an investment, and we also recognize that not one single entity has all the answers, not one single group of people has all the answers, but we collectively can really make the kind of change that our students need so that we can engage in this global economy. It's quite fitting that we have our exchange students from Germany here today. Our truancy people are here today. That really exemplifies the importance of all of us working together. You know, there are challenges that we're facing here in Oklahoma City, but they're the same challenges that districts are facing around the country. Here in Oklahoma, we're now implementing our end of instruction tests. Students who have to work really hard to make sure that they pass certain tests to graduate from high school. Our State Department of Education has increased cut scores. That's kind of the number of questions you have to answer right to prove that you are proficient in a subject matter. And nationally, the required points that a school and a school district must receive to achieve adequate yearly progress is also increasing. So all of these things that are going on around us, coupled with many of the socioeconomic factors that even the Master Sergeant spoke about, that our children are facing, really complicates the challenges before us. And it's very clear that we cannot go it alone. We, being the Oklahoma City Public School District, cannot go it alone. Many of the things that our children need are beyond the singular reach of our school district. You know the numbers. I'm not going to go over them. You've heard them regularly in our district, who our district is, what it looks like. It is clearly a multiracial district. 80% of our students in our district, thereabout, are from minority groups. So we also know that many of our students, probably in virtually every school, building that we have, more than 50% of our students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Many of our buildings, it's 90%, 95%, 100% eligibility. You know our student body. You represent our student body. So I don't have to tell you who it is we represent. But things are really getting a little better, just not enough and not fast enough. But I did want to at least give you a little of this information. In the spring of 2004, Oklahoma City Public Schools had 27 schools on the needs improvement list. The most recent data, just coming out of our State Department of Education 2010, we now have 17 schools on the needs improvement list. That's progress. We have 28 schools in our district, and we have about 86 schools, so it's not half, but a decent number of schools with 80 to 100% of their students eligible for free and reduced lunch that have consistently been above what we consider the cut score. They've scored higher than anyone expected. So it's clear that our students, regardless of the issues that they face, can perform, and can perform at a level much higher than many expected. Several of those schools, more than half of them, 24 of the 28, have consistently outperformed other schools in the state for 4 consecutive years. But you know, things are not as good as they seem sometimes on the surface, even though all of our schools, on the most recent data, 2010 data released by State Department of Ed, all but 20 of our schools scored higher on the performance index this year than last year. Noted increase, but clearly not enough. In fact, schools that did not make adequate yearly progress in the year 2004 numbered at 16. This year they numbered at 29. So although we are making gains, clearly those are not enough. So what are we doing right now in our school district? Several things that we're doing. We've recognized we have to do better. We've instituted for our high schools something called ACT America's Choice Initiative. It's an initiative that focuses on core curriculum, provides students with the tutoring, the rigor and the requirements and the expectations necessary to exceed. Our elementary schools are implementing Great Expectations. It's a concept that makes kids understand we expect more and we provide for them the resources that they need. Teacher coaches in the classroom, so teachers who maybe need a little assistance, have a teacher right there with them to help. We graduate teachers from college and we, in essence, throw them to the wolves, 9 weeks of student teaching, and then lo and behold, they're the teacher in the classroom with 25 students. So this is a way to alleviate some of the anxiety and some of the, in essence, on-the-job training that our teachers need. We have principal exchanges, so principals who are in high-performing schools get a chance to help mentor and nurture principals in low-performing schools. Many of our schools are moving to a continuous learning calendar. We have supplemental education services in place, so virtually any student in our district who's in need of tutorial services, it's there and available to them. We have our community engagement initiative that's underway, community advisory boards, so parents, business leaders, other community representatives have an opportunity to be at a particular school and really determine what that school needs. Our district working teams who are focusing on broader policies and changes in our district comprised, again, of the parents, business communities, others. So we're really opening the doors for a new set of eyes on what we're doing. We've restructured our district office, streamlined efforts. We're restructuring the board. When I became board chair, we didn't have a budget committee. We have a budget committee now. We didn't have a personnel committee. We're appointing a personnel committee. We're appointing an academic performance evaluation committee. So our board members will be more engaged in what's going on in our district. And finally, we're looking at doing a whole lot of other new things. In fact, our superintendent, Carl Springer, received a call the other day from one of the assistant secretaries of the U.S. Department of Education. It says Oklahoma City Public Schools on the radar screen. They're very interested in our attempt to do several things. Move our whole district to a continuous learning calendar. So our kids don't spend 3 months of the summer at home doing whatever they do. We call it the dumbed down factor. We're looking at extending our school day. So kids are not just in school 6 hours of the day, but they're there longer. And maybe the activities that they do after school don't necessarily look like regular school, but we know there are activities that increase and enhance their academic performance. We're looking at creating high school academies. Oklahoma's on the radar screen clearly, with the Northeast Academy for Health Sciences and Engineering becoming the first national academy in the state of Oklahoma, Engineering Academy. So we're pushing our kids to seek those professions and do those things that not only will they enjoy now, but we know will make a contribution back to our communities when they graduate from college or choose a career tech field. So we want all of our high schools to have themed academies that we know will move a kid from school to work, from school to college. We're looking at middle school exploratory programs so kids understand early the connection between school and the life that comes after school. We're considering all-day pre-K. It's an expensive endeavor, but we know the value of moving kids to school earlier and keeping them there for a little longer. So we're looking at these things, and we cannot do these things without your help. So we have two things I will ask you to consider. The mayor and I have had an opportunity to talk about these things as well. Our strategic planning process is well underway. We are actually identifying individuals who will serve on our strategic planning committee, and I've asked the mayor to work with you and to appoint how many ever members he needs to appoint to participate in this very intensive hard work starting the end of the month to run about 4 weeks, Mr. Mayor. And they're about 4-hour meetings, so they're long meetings that will happen about once a week for about 4 weeks. But we need your voices. We need your representation. We need your ideas and your thoughts. And then I also talked to the mayor and others about the two boards, the Oklahoma City Public School Board and this council, having regular meetings, open meetings where we can sit down, see information, review information. You have a better feel for what we're doing. So it's not just the recent circumstances that bring me here today that continue this dialogue, but it's the commitment that exists between this body and our body to truly make a difference in the lives of our children. Mr. Mayor, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate the invitation. All of you council members, thank you for your interest in our children. There clearly are many ways we can work together, and I really look forward to the change that we're going to make in this great city. God bless you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Angela. Angela, what time of year would be a good time for that annual meeting of the assessment?
Well, you know, this is our #1 priority, the education of our children. So we're amenable. I think as the strategic planning process concludes toward the end of November, and with your input, it may be good to do it shortly thereafter, so members on this council have a very good feel of what we're proposing and the business plan that we'd like to implement to make sure those changes take place and those strategies are employed. So maybe sometimes during the fall, early winter. And then again, July, August, shortly after the State Department of Education releases some preliminary information, might be another good time. If we do it twice a year, if we do it quarterly, clearly we can just follow the quarterly schedule.
Okay.
But we really, that's important to us. It's part of our strategic plan. It's part of our implementation plan. So we hope that you will also agree to do that with us.
We appreciate you coming down here. Any other comments? Yeah, Sam?
Mayor, I want to say, for me, it's a good day. It's a good move that Ms. Monson is here as president of the Oklahoma City School Board at your invitation or however that happened, and that you were willing to be here in this presentation this morning, Ms. Monson. I think the level, and I understand at this same time this morning, the Superintendent Carl Springer is speaking to the Chamber of Commerce on the same subject, same purpose, same intent for engagement. You know, there's no shortage of frustration with the academic progress and achievement of kids in our school district at this time. We feel it, community feels it, I heard it last night at Douglas, parents feel it. Nobody understands it better than Ms. Monson and the school board. I think we are at that level of frustration. God help us that we can find a way to move through this level of frustration and use it as an opportunity. You know, this council that I've sat on for the last 7.5 years has done some recognizable things. Things, though, that you don't point out to any particular council person, not even to the mayor, except for maybe bringing the Hornets to Oklahoma City. But what this council has been recognized for in the time that I have been here is its ability to work together. And not just on this horseshoe, working together, but working together in this community, in this city, for the betterment of the citizens of Oklahoma City. This is now a part of that engagement that we have not been engaged with. I think it is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. We heard the Master Sergeant this morning speak about one of those ways that we have partnered with the Oklahoma City school system in truancy. It's a new program, but very promising results in less than a year. We haven't even had that opportunity to sit down and talk about things like busing kids to school. You know, we've got a bus system that has its inefficiencies, has its efficiencies. School districts certainly has its inefficiencies in its buses. There are ways, that's just another one to mention, ways that we have to sit down in an engaging way, and I think together move things forward in a way that academic performance will follow. The frustration level's there, but I think this opportunity today marks a point in time that we can capture that opportunity and move forward. And I appreciate you being here, and Mayor, your part in your regular dialogue with the school district. It's good to hear that. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments, Sam. Yeah, Pat?
Your Honor, thank you very much. President Munson, thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You've outlined some really exciting plans. That, I appreciate your being here. And I would suggest that either you or Dr. Springer consider periodically coming down to keep us advised of the progress on your plans, because they're very exciting, and obviously some of them will work better than others. And we want to encourage those that are very successful and maybe take a longer look at those who have been less successful. And thank you very much for outlining your plans with us, and we look forward, I hope, to seeing you again here on some kind of regular basis. I think it would be really important for us, in order to be really supportive and helpful for your efforts, to understand what those efforts are.
I appreciate those comments, and thank you. Communication is very important. If we don't tell, you don't know. So it's important for us, imperative, that we share our information with you. So we appreciate the invitation to come on a regular basis, and we want you to join with us to do some of the harder work to determine what really is in the best interest of this city and our students as we continue to plan throughout this process, but it's a continual process as well. I appreciate that very much. Carl is at the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber meeting this morning. Thank you, Councilman Bowman, for mentioning that. He would have otherwise been here. He's doing the exact same thing right now. And the board, let me express the board's appreciation of Carl Springer. So much so, we extended him a 3-year contract. I expect you all know that. Trying to create some stability in this district, which is vitally important if we're going to move forward. So I have great admiration and respect for our superintendent. I consider him a very good friend, a great ally in making a difference in the lives of children, just as I consider each of you to be the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all.
We're on item 4 of the council agenda. This is the Journal of Council Proceedings. Item A is to receive the Journal of Council Proceedings for September 28th and October 5th, and item B is to approve the Journal of Council Proceedings for September 14th. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the Journal? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 5 is a request for uncontested continuances.
Yes, sir. We have one listed on the agenda on page 25. Is item 8N 1 and 2 to be deferred until the 19th of October.
All right.
On page 23, item 8L1, the dilapidated structures, item G, 1740 Northwest 1st Street. I'd like to strike that item. The owner has removed. On page 24, item T, 2338 Northwest 35th Street. I'd like to strike that item. The owner has removed that. On the page 24, item 8M1, item P, 732 Southeast 33rd Street. We'd like to strike that item and rework it for a new owner.
Okay.
That's all.
Eric, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Mayor, I requested the continuance of the item on the paving assessment district that appears on the agenda, and then submitted a package to you all saying we didn't need the continuance after all, because we had a majority of protestants against it. However, it may be some people didn't show up today in reliance on our request for a continuance, so we're willing to continue it until next week and have it heard then.
All right, and that's the item 8N2? Is that right?
Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, if I may. Staff requested the deferral in order for the municipal counselor and the Public Works Department to review the effect of the protests on the assessment district.
Okay.
I couldn't quite hear that.
Staff requested the deferral
I
after
see.
receiving your protests
Okay.
to determine the effect of the protests on the
Right.
Thank you.
assessment district. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, we'll recess the council meeting. Convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. There are 4 items. Any comments or questions on the MFA? Yeah,
Your Honor, I
Pat.
have a question on FAA 8.1. This is a railroad project, a sealed railroad safety corridor. And I had a couple of questions. One is the railroad participating at all in the cost of this project? And secondly, I would ask that before the contract for construction is issued, after the contract for engineering is completed, that we have an opportunity at the council to look at that plan to see what it really asks for. Have a significant impact if we close railroad crossings, and so I just think it would behoove us to be made aware of what the engineer will propose ultimately on his project.
Okay. Dennis, why is this railroad corridor being sealed?
Due to various requests from businesses and homeowners in the area.
For sound?
Yes, for sound.
That's what I thought.
Right.
All right.
And
Thank you.
yes, we will bring this back to you to let you know what's going on after the preliminary report stage, what's being recommended. And to answer your first question, I think there is some room for negotiation with the railroad. Nothing has been agreed to by them yet, but I think there's some room for negotiation.
I think it's a great point, because I think we need to continue to negotiate, because the write-up here talks about improving the street crossings that are left open, and some of those crossings that exist today need improvement in more sort of way to make it more safer and better for our citizens who go back and forth across those tracks. And since we're going to reduce the number of crossings, it makes it even more important. Thank you.
I have a question, Dennis. Since this has come up, why aren't we looking at the total number of areas in Oklahoma City that are similar or affected the same way in reference to these railroad crossings? Is that not possible that we could look at the other areas of the city that are affected the same way as far as the sound?
Councilman, we could. We just haven't had any requests to do so.
How many requests did it take for us to get to this $250,000 project then? I mean, is this... because I've had 1 or 2 people to call me in reference to this area of Northeast 6. And so I'm wondering, is this driven by a petition of residents in the area, or do other citizens know what the process is to address the same problem that they have? Because I know some other areas that are affected in the same way.
To answer your question, I don't know exactly how many folks or businesses participated in a petition of any kind. I'll be glad to get that information for you. This is probably the most concentrated area of at-grade crossings in any one area in the city. Once you get out of the downtown area, you don't, let's say going north past 23rd Street, you really can't think of a whole lot of at-grade crossings you'll have one every once in a while, and in the same way going south. But this is the most concentrated number, and this is the only area, again, that we've had any inquiry. I'll be glad to get you some information about how folks would be able to request such a thing.
All right.
Ready to vote the MFA?
Just a comment on that. I've had a couple of situations. One in particular, we're close to where the dump is out there on Southeast 59th Street, and I didn't use the petition. We just had a conversation about it. It takes a long time because anytime you're dealing with the railroad, it takes forever to get something done. But it got done pretty quickly, just based on a couple of phone calls and the engineering folks going out and taking a look at it. And it's fixed now, and that's all happened. All that transpired within the last 5 or 6 months, I think.
You're talking about a improvement of the crossing.
It failed. I mean, it was a terrible crossing, and it got fixed and failed, and we, in just a couple of phone calls, got people back out there to look at it. I don't know how the process works otherwise, but for me, it's been pretty good.
The railroad is responsible for maintaining the crossing and making sure, and I think that's what you're talking about. This is really a totally different animal about creating a sealed safety corridor whereby the guy driving the train is not required to blow his horn when he approaches an at-grade crossing.
How long is that? For how long a distance is that?
You mean how long?
How long an area is we're going to exempt them from blowing the whistle?
Well, if we address these crossings beginning at I believe 7th all the way up to 16th, the furthest, the next grade crossing to the south is at Southeast 23rd Street, and the next one to the north.
So they'll just stop at 23rd Street. They'll blow them all the way.
They're required to blow their horn when they come into a station. So even if the station's not in operation, they still have to blow their horn when they come into a station. If we do the work that's proposed here, then the train engineer is not required to blow their horn when they go through the rest of this area.
From where on the south? The last one will be on
the last one will be at Southeast 23rd Street, all the way to. I quite frankly, I can't even remember where the next one to the north is.
Well, I'd hate to see them stop blowing it completely, because as a kid growing up in South Oklahoma City without air conditioning, that's how I knew I was alive, because once in a while that whistle would blow, and if I hear it, well, I knew I was still here. And so I'd hate to see them eliminate that completely. There are probably some other kids left out there without air conditioning.
Any other comments on the MFA? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Adjourn CMFA, convened as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. We have one item. We have one citizen who signed up to speak to this item. Do we have a motion? Move. And a second. All right, Larry Cody. Larry? Making a dramatic entrance. Larry? It's all right. We will need your name and address for the record, please.
Larry Cody, 4228 North Santa Fe. I work for Garner Tannenbaum Holding Group. We have the Park Harvey building and the Montgomery building. Those are both in the new assessment that you want to implement or approve. I wasn't sure why the retroactive, why the assessment now, and I wasn't following everything. It limited information, so it was kind of hard to find out exactly who's in charge, where it'll all go, why the assessment.
Okay. Your question is specifically why the change from previous years. Okay.
Yeah.
Morning, council members. A.J. Kirkpatrick with the Planning Department. I am the staff person for the Downtown Business Improvement District. My contact info is on the bills that you receive, so you shouldn't hesitate to call me on that number if you want. This year, we are doing it retroactive due to the fact that this is the final year, and we were trying to clear our books with our ratepayer representative, Downtown Oklahoma City Incorporated. We also decided to start double noticing for all public hearings, and so that had caused us to do an extra week in between the introduction of the ordinance and the final hearing of the ordinance. So that meant that we had to do it retroactive to October 1st. Specifically to your properties, there are almost 800, 900 properties in downtown Bid, so it's somewhat difficult for me to know specifically what's happening on every single property without looking at the assessment roll. But I would guess, you said you're with Gardner Tannenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. Typically we see, let me start by saying that we have to use the assessed values from the county assessor from the year previous. So in this roll, I'm using 2009 values. Typically what we're seeing with the new housing that's going in is it's taking about 3 years from when the project was completed for the full assessed value to come to into our formula. So I would have to guess that's probably what's happened given the age of those projects. Overall, I will say that this is only 6 months of authorization, whereas in the past we've done 12 months. So you actually are seeing a reduced assessment than you would see in any given year. We're also spending down quite a bit of reserves since this is the last year. So that should have cushioned some of your assessment this year.
Okay. All right, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're ready to vote on the PPA. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Adjourn OCPPA, convened as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. There is one item. Okay. Comments or questions on the EAT? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Adjourn OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. All right, are there any individual considerations?
Your Honor, L and AV, Alpha Victor.
All right. Any others?
AQ1.
AQ1. All right, Sam.
Y Yankee, Alpha Alpha.
All right. Pat, you want to get us started with L and AV?
Thank you, Your Honor. L is a project or a resolution that will allow the bond to be called to complete some improvements at a subdivision that there's been some issues on. And I'd just like to inform the council that I've talked to the municipal counselor's office and the director of public works about eliminating the bond as an option to guarantee completion of these projects and requiring either a cash deposit or a certificate of at a bank, letter of credit. I think the bonding process is one that fewer and fewer of our developers use all the time. The last time I got some numbers, it was about 30% used the bond and 70% chose a different method. The bonding process, when it fails, is a time-consuming and sometimes quite expensive process for the city to pursue. We wind up in court. Legal actions are required from time to time. So I think it would behoove us to do something to alleviate the impact of our citizens of long delays in completing these projects sometimes when the bond has to be called. And so if there's comments from my colleagues, I would appreciate hearing those comments as we go forward with this issue. AV is a project to allow the County Office of Emergency Management to use some city facilities. And I wondered if this was an opportunity to consider realizing some of the huge savings we might experience by combining some of the governmental office functions. Seems like having a county office of emergency management and a city office of emergency management, when the city covers such a vast amount of our county, may be a duplication of efforts unless there's some kind of statutory requirement that these positions exist. I would suggest that perhaps some discussion about combining these two offices might be worthwhile. That's all right.
Pat, thank you. Sam?
Mayor, AQ1 is the council action will initiate the selection process for the request for proposals for the new senior health and wellness centers. Just wanted to compliment the advisory committee, MAPS advisory committee, and Eric Winger for taking the priority of this council and moving it expeditiously. I think this certainly reflects that.
Agreed. And Brian, YAA?
The first item, Y, Dennis, is talking about improvements on Southwest 164th Street between Western and Penn. though, what kind of improvements are going to be done out there? Because it looks like it's been shelled. I mean, I guarantee that's probably the worst road in Oklahoma City. There's no curbs, there's potholes everywhere. And I was just wondering what kind of improvements are going to be done out there, because it needs to be completely rebuilt.
This is a section from Penn to Western. I believe half of it right now is paved and the other half is gravel.
Half of it is gravel and the other half used to be paved, you're right.
Right. The county has agreed to provide the labor, and a local developer has agreed to pay for the materials, and I believe it's just a simple resurfacing project. And I'm sure that if there's problems in the area where the existing paving exists, that they will address those problems before they surface over it.
Okay, great. And the second one, AA, has to do with the widening project, 134th to the city limits. Where are we on that, and when should equipment be seen out there?
I believe we're looking at a construction let date shortly after the first of the year. I'm guessing March, April, somewhere in that time frame. Okay. We're still got some right-of-way negotiations like this particular item.
Okay. So there'll be construction equipment out there approximately when?
Let's say the first half of next year, just to be safe. I don't want to give citizens tell them it's going to be February when it's actually April, May, or June.
All right, ready to vote the consent docket? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. On to the concurrence. All right, any individual considerations on the concurrence docket? Comments or questions? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. On to item 8, these are items that require a separate vote, and we start with a series of zoning cases, the first of which is in Ward 3. The address is 900 South MacArthur Boulevard. It's currently I-2 moderate industrial. It would become a planned unit development district. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item today? Did Larry talk to anyone about any concerns?
Your Honor, he did. He asked me to move it forward if there were no objections or comments from the public.
Appreciate that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Well, let's move forward, and it passes unanimously. Item 8A2 is a zoning case in Ward 6. The address is 3632 Southwest 25th Street. It's currently R1 single-family residential, along with an AE2 Airport Environs Overlay District, and it would become a simplified plan unit development district. Did Meg speak to anyone about any concerns she had on this one? Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item? This is item 8A2. All right, how about a motion? We'll move it forward. Cast your votes, and it passes unanimously. Item 8A3 is a zoning case in Ward 3. The address is 9307 North Military Avenue. It's currently R4 General Residential, and it would become a simplified plan unit development. Sam, we have one person who has signed up to speak.
And Mayor, before Mr. Armstrong does, I've asked Bob Tiener if he would just for council please clarify the situation here for us.
This is an application to allow some additional parking. If you note on the map, the lot directly to the north that's labeled vacant is already zoned C3 and would allow a restaurant. The expansion into this non-conforming parking lot allows them to add extra parking and helps them with their drive-through lanes. And so really the application's only for that spot indicated on the map. The vacant part's already zoned C3 and would allow the restaurant.
All right, Russell Armstrong. Good morning, Russell. We will need your name and address for the record.
Russell Armstrong, 8824 Bob White Road in Yukon, Oklahoma. I also own the adjacent lot south of the property subject to the rezoning request.
Okay, I see it there.
I wanted to thank you all for allowing me to come here today and express my concerns about the issues. I feel that if this is allowed to pass, that my ability to be able to build a home there or even be able to build a rental property there is going to be compromised. I know for a fact, I lived up in Britain for 30 years before I moved to Yukon, and I know that this restaurant development is going to have very bright lights in their parking lot. They're also open until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. The problem that with just the lighting alone, but also the excess traffic and noise that comes along with it, with the people that have stereos in their car that, after living up there, it seemed like there were so many people up there that had a $400 car and a $4,000 stereo unit that you could hear from 3 or 4 blocks away. And I know that these are going to be the kind of people that are going to be coming through this drive-through at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's going to compromise my ability to build a home there, and I'm the kind of person that I'm not even going to build a rental property there and subject a renter to that type of issues. And I think that if I did, that they would probably have a valid reason to invalidate the lease and move out of my property. So, there are a lot of things involved here. I've actually talked with the president of the restaurant that's proposed to be put in here, and quite frankly, in my opinion, he treated me with disrespect. He told me that he would not be interested in buying my property at any price, and quite frankly, I would like to be out of there. I do not want to be a neighbor there, and I dare to say that I would doubt if any of you would want to build a home next to a restaurant that's going to be open until 2 o'clock in the morning and have to deal with the issues.
But currently your property's vacant?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I bought it 13 years ago.
Okay. Russell, thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Does council have any questions before I ask the applicant if they want to respond?
What's the parking like now?
Pardon?
What is the parking situation now?
Well, this was a non-conforming parking lot. Prior to 1980, you could do a parking lot in the R4 zoning district, so that's why they're rezoning or asking for this rezoning, so they could allow it to add additional parking for the restaurant, and it allows the drive-through to come around behind the building.
Is there a drive-through now?
There's not a restaurant there. They're going to build a new restaurant.
Bob, do we have one of the issues Mr. Armstrong and I have talked about, I know it's gone beyond that with him, but I just want to be sure, do we have the sewer easement from the applicant?
Yes, and that'll be processed next week at the next council meeting.
That runs across the south part of the property and was a major concern to Mr. Armstrong initially, and I see that it's more than that. I've had a couple of telephone visits with him, and I wish this thing could be accommodated through a purchase by Taco Mayo, but that's not our purview and our business. This lot, first of all, the corner property, C3 property on Britton, is zoned for a Taco Mayo. It's zoned and done. This previously used parking lot, or unused parking lot, partially paved, is being requested by the applicant to add to Taco Mayo for accessory parking. So as much as I'd like to see this thing worked out between the owner and Mr. Armstrong, again, that's not our business, and the use of this as accessory parking, I think, does not intensify the allowed use of the Taco Mayo on Britton. So I'm going to move for approval, subject to the sewer easement.
All right. Have a second? Comments or questions? All right. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We're on to item 8A4. It's a zoning case in Ward 7. Series of addresses on Northeastern Avenue. It's currently a planned unit development, and it would become a new simplified planned unit development. Skip?
I'm sorry. I haven't received any objections to this, so I would move it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 8A4. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8A5 is closing an alley in Ward 6. How about a motion on this one?
Second.
Cast your votes on item 8B.
Well, I have a question on
All right. It passes unanimously.
B and C both.
All right.
Is this the alleys and the old Finley building?
Well, item C is the hotel. Is that what you're talking about?
Okay, the alley one's the one I have a question on. B, C, we're good.
Yeah, B was the alley.
Okay, yeah, okay. I do have a question on the alley.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that alley is right immediately north of where. Okay, no, I don't. This is not the right one. I've lost my mind here.
All right.
The train whistle went. It's later. Forget it. I don't have a problem.
All right, we're on to item 8.
I have a problem, but it's not this. It's obviously something else.
Item 8C, working on a hotel in Ward 7. Skip, you okay with this one?
Yes, and I've talked to the developers, and it is...
This is the one I have a problem.
That's the one you had a problem with?
Well, C and D, because immediately south of that is where Detox is now. And that alley is used by Detox. That's the only access they have to the back there. And at the snail's pace that we are completing the new Detox, it may be a year before they're out of that old building. And if that alley is going to be utilized, they're not going to have access to the back. They use that back for parking sometimes. They have dumpsters back there. I obviously don't want to have any problem, but if that alley has to be closed, then they're not going to be able to get back there.
Mayor Dennis Fox, in regard to your question, we understand we've got to coordinate and deal with everybody involved, all the present parties. We have to go to the district court, and so all that will be worked out before any construction.
Well, it may well be a year before they're able to move. So, yeah, obviously I don't want to do anything to slow this down, except we can't shut Detox down.
Dennis, you think you can work this out?
Pardon?
You think you're going to be able to work this out, work around it?
We think we are, yes. And if we don't work it out, then...
You will personally go back and get the trash and valet park the cars when people come there.
I will be your assistant, and we will do that.
Okay. I really do want to be sure I'm making light of it, but it is not if that alley actually becomes utilized before they're able to move out of there, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, it's going to be hard on both of them.
There's only one parking space available to Detox, and that's where the police come to park that van or whatever to bring people to Detox. So if they can't get down that side there or can't get to the parking places in the back, it could be a real serious problem.
You raise a very good point in answer to the mayor's question. Yeah, I think we can work it out, but it obviously will have to be before we can get any kind of construction financing to build the kind of project we're going to build there. So,
what is the plan as it is right now, Dennis? I know this is for the hotel. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the issue that Councilman White brings as it relates to the alley, how have you all identified the usage of the hotel as far as that area having an effect for the hotel?
In order for the hotel to proceed with regard to construction and being built, this is a key parcel, for our project. So we're working with, Urban Renewal, we're working with Detox, we're trying to find, an answer in regard to timing, but we'll need to vacate this prior to our proceeding with construction. So if the issue Pete raised and obviously is important to you and the mayor and everybody in this council, if timing becomes a real problem, then we might end up being in a position of having to wait until things are taken care of with the Detox Center. But we're hopeful.
Another possible solution would be to get off the dime on the Detox construction and get it built, because they want out of there too. They don't want to be there, and the money's already allocated. I think we're waiting on plans or something if there's anybody that's has any stroke about moving the detox project along, would make this project move, because we don't want, there's nothing, we don't want to do anything to stop that, except if we can't continue to use detox, we've got a big problem. So if there's a way to move that project along, this might be the catalyst for doing just that.
Well, I definitely don't think that the hotel is going to be there with the detox right next door to it. I mean, I don't think you're planning.
I'll let Dennis speak to the detox deal. On the hotel development, in our redevelopment, which OCPPA is a party to, the site is to be developed as one whole. The redeveloper of the hotel needs to have, he will not start construction until detox is moved, even though the alley may be closed early, much before that, because that will, his location of his two-story parking structure will actually sit on part of the detox thing. So nothing will start over there until detox is relocated to Linwood.
Right. Thanks,
Joe. We're going to hurry up on the detox anyway.
Yes, sir. As far as the detox, I think we're very close to finishing the plans, and the anticipated construction schedule is about 6 months. So the last I heard, we're looking at completing the project in May, giving them a month to make the move.
Okay. Well, that'll make Ron happy, and that'll make detox happy, and me happy, and a lot of people that need detox happier, at least.
I've got a question. Joanne, could you come back up here a second? You know, I wouldn't let you escape. You've talked about this long enough. You've now raised a question in my mind. That's an old fire, detox is an old fire station.
Yes, sir.
And does the city still own that separately, or is that urban renewal?
No, the city owns that. They have an appraisal for it, and the way staff has talked, which will be brought before council, is that urban renewal would purchase it from the city, and the appraised price is $150,000, and we would turn around and sell that detox site to the redeveloper for the same $150,000.
The entire detox site, not just part of it.
The entire
You're doing
detox
the entire site that the city owns currently, is what you're talking about.
Yes, right. And that money would be paid to the city, $150,000.
So there's another assurance they couldn't do anything until we sold them the property anyway.
Good. Yeah, you've got us by the short hair.
All right, ready to vote on item C? Motion on item 8C.
Motion, move it.
Second.
Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8D, similar issue, closing some alleys for the hotel. Motion.
Second.
Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8E, defines some of the language in our retirement system. Comments or questions on this item? Okay, we're voting on item 8E, and it passed unanimously. Item 8F has to do with boating and fishing permits. Comments or questions on item 8F? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8G is our annual look at the downtown bid. AJ is here. Is there any comments or questions? All right. Looks like we have an amendment.
Just to update and to bring up a couple of things I mentioned earlier, there are 3 different things this year compared to previous years. First, we added amendment after introduction. That was to add Section 8, which clarified what we would do with any money that was received after this bid is closed down on March 31st. During that time that we were adding the amendment, we actually gave the clerk's office an incorrect memo that used assessment numbers from last year. So we apologize for the mistake. The city clerk right now is passing out an updated memo that better reflects the numbers. You'll notice that there is an option 1 and option 2 for the first time. As I was mentioning with Mr. Cody's question, we have noticed over the past 3 years, we knew that this was coming. It's a growing pain now that we actually have condos downtown. The downtown bid, when it was created in 2000, we had no idea that we'd have downtown condos to assess. In our conversations with our consultant and other cities, it does seem that downtown residents do pay into downtown business improvement districts. They do benefit from the services that are being provided. The issue was we just didn't know at what level they should have to pay. So we, over the past 3 years, as we've seen their assessed values grow to their full value, we were trying to figure out how to deal with that. And what we've decided is something that we'll institute on April 1st in the new Downtown Business Improvement District. But since we were seeing some condos this year that were going to be assessed almost $2,000 for a 6-month period, in addition to any condo fees they were already paying, we decided to try to start that new system early. And basically what it is it gives a uniform rate to all condos. For instance, in the Brownstones, they were having to pay a great deal because they had double frontage on some streets. Others had very high assessed values, so you were seeing a great deal of variability within their rates. So we've given them a 2-tiered uniform system, and option 2. One is they pay a uniform rate into the district-wide budget. It comes to about $36, and each one is paying that $36. And then if they're in a street-level maintenance area, which the Centennial and Bricktown is, they're also paying a small percentage of that, so they're paying about $6.50. So either they're paying about $30 or $36 into those 2 different pots individually. So we are recommending that you approve the assessment roll with option 2.
My question, those figures, is that by the total number of condos that are in the area or the total number of condos that are occupied?
It's just total number of condos.
Just a total number of condos. Mm-hmm. And so what's the total amount?
On the district-wide, I think it's generating about $6,000 for all 218 condos. And on the street level, it's only generating about $200 on the 30 condos in Bricktown that are paying into street level. We expect those numbers to increase when we do a full year of authorization.
So the brownstones that's over on 2nd Street, Styles, are those included in this?
They are, yeah. In a full year authorization, we would expect each brownstone to pay about $75 annually into the Business Improvement District. And we think that's just about the right amount of money for them to feel like they're getting some say in how it's being governed. It makes DOKC responsive to them, but we don't feel like it's too much of a burden given that they're also paying condo fees and typically higher home prices.
All right, ready to vote on item 8G? How about a motion? Cast your vote. Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 8H just cleans up some language on our assessment districts. It's the new memo that you have out there in front of you.
Oh, no, we'll need the emergency on H, sorry.
Okay. All right, voting on H. Passed unanimously. All right, cast your votes on the emergency. 7-0. On to item 8I. This sets the criteria for our industrial pre-treatment policies. Something we do every 5 years. Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on item 8I? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8J is an amendment to our landscaping ordinance. All right.
I don't know anything about it.
Good morning. I'm Aubrey Hammondtree with the Oklahoma City Planning Department. We've prepared a short presentation for you to go over some of our proposed ordinance amendments. Thank you, Susan. In an attempt to improve community appearance, we've been working on this issue for several years. Back in 2008, we had a joint workshop with the City Council and Planning Commission, and it was brought up at that workshop for the Planning Department to take a look at what we've designated as appearance corridors across the city. In our comprehensive plan, we have defined appearance corridors as the interstates that move across Oklahoma City. So we've looked at those and evaluated how we might improve appearance. In September of 2008, the Planning Commission adopted some design guidelines for development that would be abutting those corridors. If that development rezones to a planned unit development, there would be design criteria in place for us to help improve the appearance for those areas of the city. But in a larger attempt to improve community appearance, we felt that appearance standards might be necessary to take a look at other ways that we can improve city codes to just make sure that new development across the city was also achieving some enhanced appearance. So we convened a group of developers and design members. About 40 people were invited to help us look at city codes and how we might improve appearance. So in January of 2010, we got those members together and we met for about 7 months. So what you're seeing today is a product of that work. We've presented these code amendments to the Urban Development Committee of the Planning Commission in August for their review and approval. They recommended to the Planning Commission that they be supported. The Planning Commission met in September and are recommending approval of these code changes to you. So I'll take you through those. You have 2 separate amendments that are going to be put as companion items. They make minor changes to Chapter 3, which is the sign code, and some changes to Chapter 59. And I'll walk you through those real quick. In Chapter 3, the sign code, we're requiring that landscaping be placed at the base of all freestanding signs. This is where the landscaping requirement is put into place, and it's referenced also in the landscape code. This was also an opportunity for us to clarify just the definition of a ground sign, since we're requiring landscaping to be placed at the base. Most of the changes take place in Chapter 59, the Planning and Zoning Code.
Aubrey, could you just do that in language, the language, how you're clarifying ground signs? How do I just understand that in lay terms?
There was a term in there that helped to create a difference between what a ground sign and a pole sign might be, so that the ground sign had to be, I think it's a 50% of the base width, 50% of the width of the sign at its base. And I can look that up for you real quick. It's basically just defining the proportions of the sign so that one doesn't interpret a ground sign to be the same as a pole sign. And this was something that was becoming an issue in the interpretation of the code, so it was an opportunity to provide further clarification of that for people who were implementing the code.
Simple as the base of the ground sign will be the base of the ground?
No, it's actually the physical constructed bottom part of the sign to have a specific width. And this is not really as
you're
related.
saying if a sign is 100 foot wide, if at least 50% of that goes all the way to the ground, then it's a ground sign.
Yeah, let me look this up real quick and see what that specific language is. This is really kind of not as specifically related to appearance corridors, but was more of a definition that we wanted to put some clarification around. What it's saying is that any freestanding accessory sign that's placed upon the ground or supported by a base, that a minimum of 50% of the width of the sign is at its widest point at the base. Does that answer your questions?
What's the requirement?
For the size of signs?
No, as far as the ground sign, I thought the last slide said something about landscaping.
Yeah, the actual requirement that we are putting in here for appearance standards is for landscaping at the base. And people that were in plan review asked us to put the clarification of the definition of a ground sign in there to help them. So I'm not as versed on the whole sign issue as I am the appearance standards part. Yes. Okay.
So now we will be policing flowers.
We're requiring a certain number of landscape points to be placed around the base of these types of signs, and these points can count towards your existing landscape point requirements. So it doesn't increase the total number of landscaping points you have to put in for a site. It just redistributes those points so that you can put them within 10 feet of the base of a sign. Okay? Okay.
Can I make just a sidebar comment here? I wish we'd spend as much time focusing on speeders in neighborhoods that are going to eventually hit and kill a child as we do on how many flowers are at the base of a sign. it seems like that we spend a lot more time focusing on this kind of thing than we do on trying to solve problems of speeders in neighborhoods. Just a thought.
Okay. On this page, we've combined some things together in that we've also added some definitions that supported appearance standards throughout the zoning code to help clarify new language that we're adopting or proposing. We are establishing a new section for parking lot design, which now requires internal pedestrian access ways, and these are for large parking lots, over 200 spaces, and this is only required when the building is 150 feet or more from the right-of-way. And the purpose of this is so that we provide access ways to get people from the public right-of-way to the building through a safe pedestrian corridor. It also helps to just break up the expanse of large parking lots and provide a visual break.
Excuse me, define safe pedestrian passageway.
These,
Can it be a curbed, a sidewalk kind of thing, or just a painted stripe?
The pedestrian access ways can be done in a couple of different methods. There are standards that are defined in here so that they're protected from, with curbs from the parking area, that they have adequate ADA striping, that they have adequate ADA ramping, so that that area would be a protected pathway through a parking lot from the right-of-way to the building. We've also established a new section allowing some reductions to the minimum parking requirements in exchange for other methods. So this is a substitution ratio that's set forth so you can substitute parking spaces for bicycle parking, motorcycle or scooter parking, on-street parking, certain amount of landscaping, or preserving existing trees. And this method allows up to 30% of the minimum parking requirement to be substituted with these other methods.
Are you going to allow them to reduce the number of spaces, but the overall square footage of the lot remains the same?
No, they could reduce the paving area if they reduce the number of spaces, because the substitution methods that they might put in wouldn't require as much paving. The bicycle parking, for example, could even be bicycles mounted on the side of a building. Landscape area could be increased, trees could be preserved, so it could overall reduce the amount of paved area.
So we're going to allow them to build a bigger restaurant because they can do less parking if they simply put in bike racks?
Yes, if they met the substitution ratio, then they could conceivably have more room on their site for other uses.
I just think we've dealt with some places where the size of the restaurant was critical based on the number of parking spaces they needed for it. And it just seems like we're giving some of these developers a way out to not put in the parking that's been so critical to them all along, just to put in a few bike racks. I don't know.
There's
just a thought.
There's a clause in this that does not relieve them from having to meet and maintain adequate parking for their proposed use. And when we met with our committee, the committee assured us that people wouldn't underpark a facility if they felt it was necessary for the viability of their business. So they felt like people at least had a good handle on making sure that their customers, the types of customers that would come to visit them, could get there. A lot of the reason that we wanted to do this is because there are a lot of opportunities to redevelop infill sites that are smaller and that they might have more traffic from people who would ride bikes or take scooters or motorcycles. So it's an opportunity and it's not a requirement, and we're hoping that people would be able to use this and that it would make sense and promote other means of getting to those businesses.
But it's not specific to infill sites. I mean, somebody could do it in a suburban area also?
Correct. Okay, we've also established a new requirement for screening outdoor storage and service areas that are visible from the public right-of-way with landscaping. It sets forth multiple options for how to achieve that with a certain number of trees or shrubs, berms, fences, or walls. This exempts industrial uses that are inside larger industrial developments, and it also exempts areas that might already be naturally screened from view. We had some existing requirements established in the landscape ordinance for landscaping parking lots, but we've enhanced those. We've established a requirement now that when a parking lot is abutting the public right-of-way, that the perimeter of the parking lot is planted with a certain type of plantings to achieve a certain intent of screening. And we've specified what types of plantings would be appropriate to achieve those. The next section is also a new section requiring a streetscape buffer. This would be for commercial, office, and industrial uses. The purpose of putting this in place is so that we can help to define a street edge with at least landscaping, since in a lot of areas of the city we don't have a street edge defined by buildings or consistent setbacks. This helps to put shade on sidewalks and improve the appearance along roadways. What this requirement would put into place is that trees would need to be planted within 20 feet of the street edge. However, if utility conflicts exist, then those trees could be located just inside the property line.
Has there been any consideration in reference to the trees and the birds and the sidewalk?
This proposed ordinance references a document that's called Recommended Trees and Plants for Oklahoma City that gives guidelines for appropriate street trees, and that provides a short list of trees that are good for the placement next to parking lots, over cars, over sidewalks. They're not bird-proof trees, but they're better selections for street trees. So we are trying to give recommendations to narrow the types of trees that people would choose in this application.
But the problems that you have with the birds that congregate in the trees on the sidewalks of downtown Oklahoma City is pretty nasty looking.
Yeah, and
I wonder why are we continuing to put trees, and just over at the county courthouse, they've probably removed 15, 20 trees in the last year, because when you walk outside of the courthouse, you're stepping into the waste. And they're trying to correct it. So I'm trying to figure out, and even some of our sidewalks, between your cars and the sidewalk appearance, why are we continuing to put these trees that's going to attract the birds to do what they do?
Well, Skip, I think it'd be easier to get rid of the birds than it would be to discourage trees.
Well, I'm not...
We eliminated those specific types of trees that encourage nesting of birds.
So there are some trees, that's the question I was trying to get
There are
to.
some trees that will encourage birds to nest. A lot of the thicker trees like Bradford pears that provide a lot of shelter will encourage birds to nest and roost in those trees, and those are the ones in Bricktown that have caused some of those problems.
Haven't we had some success with sound and moving birds out of the downtown area? Didn't we have some success with that?
We've had success with it, but all you do is move them somewhere else.
That's right. I know we're off subject here a little bit. We digress. But okay, go ahead, Aubrey.
The placement of these trees is also going to be within 20 feet of the curb, and so unless it's a really, really large tree with a really big spread, it would be hard for birds to nest that far away over the sidewalks. So we're thinking about all of those different things that might be negatives and trying to put the best trees in the best place.
On these appearance standards, if they become a requirement for these projects, do we then have the ability to make them maintain it?
Yes, there are provisions in the code. Most of these sections in the code will have something written in there about maintenance requirements. So, for example, in the landscape code, property owners are required, if they install these as part of a municipal code, that they have to maintain those in good condition. The last section is enhancing the site lighting requirements section. We have an existing one that we are repealing and replacing with a new one. What this site lighting requirements section is doing is making sure that if a site is lit after hours, that it's done to minimum standards, and we've defined methods for measuring spill light onto adjacent properties and established methods for minimizing glare onto adjacent properties. We've also established some minimum internal site lighting requirements for specific areas, and this would be within parking areas, at building entrances and exits, along pedestrian walkways, and within common areas. So this is to improve not only appearance of the site, but also to help with safety and circulation. So in summary, Planning Commission did recommend to Council that this be considered for approval. We're here today at the introduction, and it's set for public hearing on October 26th, and then for consideration of adoption on November 2nd.
All right. Comments or questions today?
My question is it's kind of interesting that we could spend this much time on these type of issues when we have appearance issues that exist, that is a major problem, and when we try to address those issues, we're told that we don't have enough enforcement personnel to address those issues, and then we add more and more on top of what we already have. Where's the people going to be? Where are we getting the people to enforce these issues? I mean, who's going to actually go out and address the issue of whether or not a ground sign is landscaped to whose standards?
It would be the existing process for zoning inspections and enforcement. It would just become a part of their normal process. When they go out and review that landscape plans are installed in accordance to what was approved, this would just be another thing they look at as part of that approval.
But you go out the first time, so who maintains the oversight over these issues? Is that coming from code enforcement, or what department is going to oversee that?
Yes, it would just be like any other type of enforcement issue. If someone was not keeping up with these standards, it would have to be the complaint-based system to call into the city and report it with a code enforcement person following up on it.
I got some serious questions about this that I'll address later on, but, I just think that some of this is just, it's not a issue that you can really control, and so, but I'll ask those questions later.
Okay. I have a motion on 8J. Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Item 8K.
Well, Mayor, with respect to some of this discussion on trees and paved parking, if it's optional for the restaurant development, whatever, to reduce some of the surface parking to enhance the look of the property, whether it's bicycle parking or trees or landscaping, this city has nothing to gain. I mean, to be satisfied with the extent of surface parking and paving that we have in the city is something I thought we've all been wanting to find a way to address. These optional ways in beautifying by allowing developers to reduce part of that surface concrete, I think it does nothing but enhance the direction the way we've been talking about.
Okay. You want to make a motion on 8K? Second? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. On item 8L, this is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under any item listed under 8L? All right, looks like we're good to go. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8M is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any item listed under 8M? All right, cast your votes. And it passed unanimously. Item 8N has been deferred until October 19th. Item 8O is it's a routine budget amendment. Comments or questions here? How about a motion then? All right, cast your votes on 8O. Passed unanimously. Item 8P is a revocable permit with Downtown Oklahoma City, Inc. to hold the annual Downtown and December ice skating rink from November 8th through January 22nd. Is there anyone here representing this organization today? Why don't you come up and tell us about it? And we will need your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Kathy Ford Wallace, Downtown Oklahoma City Incorporated, 3913 Scissortail Drive, Yukon, Oklahoma. This is for the annual Downtown in December festivities. It's the annual Devon Ice Rink. They will be our sponsor again this year. It will be the last year in Bicentennial Park, as it will be moving to Myriad Gardens for the next season. And so we're looking forward to our annual event and your participation. So.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Congratulations. How about a motion? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. And item 8Q is a right-of-way permit for the United Methodist Church of the Servant to hold Fit to Serve 5K. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item? Okay. We have a second? We have a motion and a second. We will need your name and address for the record.
Dr. Robin Goggs, Associate Minister, Church of the Servant, 8309 Northwest 117th, Oklahoma City.
Tell us about this event.
This is an event that we are doing as a vehicle to start a new project in Northwest Oklahoma City in partnership with Oklahoma Safe Kids Coalition to become the Northwest Oklahoma City fitting station for car seats. Oklahoma as a state has one of the highest infant and child fatality rates because of lack of car seats and improperly fitted car seats. So in partnership with Oklahoma Kids Coalition, we will be hosting 4 events with the proceeds of this event in the coming year to provide car seats for families, and believe that it will reach across the demographic and the geographic setting there that we serve in Northwest Oklahoma City. The event is going to take place this Saturday. Everything seems to be in place, and we went ahead and went through all the process. I've been in conversation with Stuart Chai, and he advised me to be here today just to have some conversations with you all if there's any questions that you had about the event this Saturday concerning specifically the road, the right-of-way, and the road blockage.
All right. Any comments or questions? Yeah, Pat?
Your Honor, I urge the sponsors, a great project, and I have no problem with the project, to be particularly careful about street closings. That area is sort of sensitive because a couple of weeks ago we had a street closing out there that caused considerable disruption in traffic around that particular part of town.
Correct.
And I would hope that the street closing gets plenty of publicity so that our citizens can choose alternate routes, and that the people out there who are enforcing it understand what they have to enforce, because there was some confusion generated at the Redmond about what the closing really meant. And I just think you need to be very careful because you'd hate to have a backlash that might impact the success of your project.
And the Red Man Run did get a little bit of that. Our event is much smaller magnitude than that event, and the road closure is going to be about an hour and a half. And we honestly believe it's not going to disable anyone in that sense for getting to where they need to be.
Looks like it's MacArthur north of Memorial Road.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
And we'll be closing MacArthur basically from the entrance there to the church, which is also right across the street from the Gaillardia Home Edition, and then all the way to 155th. But then we'll have markings several blocks out.
And do you feel like the Gaillardia neighborhood is well notified? Or will be?
They will not. They will be able to get in and out.
I see. So they'll be able to have southbound.
So there'll be access for through traffic.
Right.
Yeah. The actual barrier is going to go right there at their gate. They'll also have access on 150th if they needed to go out to Portland. So there's 2 different entrances and exits there into their neighborhood.
Okay.
The neighborhood.
Ready to vote? I want to make sure Kevin Durant can get to his games, just in case.
That's important.
I don't want to
Hopefully
get
he's
locked in
not
the
playing
neighborhood.
at 8 in the morning.
Miss tip-off.
It's, and I think it's important that Gaillardia has access, but there's a lot of people who use that road who unfortunately can't afford to live in Gaillardia, move north and south on MacArthur. So we need to keep in mind that there's a lot of through traffic in there in addition to the local traffic in the economy.
Right.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Also, with the 5K, you're not talking about the road being closed for 3 days. I mean, we're talking about, an hour?
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
About an hour
at the
and a half,
max.
so-
I mean, and the great thing is, we're going north to 150th through Deer Creek Village, and as an addition, they have said that's fine, and they're supportive. They're even holding the one water station there at their clubhouse. And once the last runner or walker comes through past 155th, we'll open that up and then move the barrier to 150th. So I think you're right. It'll be an hour and a half maximum.
All right. Well, let's vote. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item 8Q is for Thunder Alley on Reno. I understand that by the time the first regular season game gets here, Reno will be open to pedestrian traffic, and get your fingers crossed. A lot of work to be done out there. You're skeptical. It'd be open to pedestrian traffic. I didn't say it'd be open to cars. Of course, for game nights, it's not open for cars anyway. All ready to go? Cast your votes on 8Q. Passed unanimously. Item 8R, I understand we do need executive session. All right, cast your votes. That item is moved to executive session. Item 8S is claims recommended for denial. We have one person who has signed up to speak. Oliver Delaney. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
Thank you for sticking with us today. We will need your name and address for the record.
My name is Oliver Delaney. I live at 5701 Hiley Drive, which is in the Wildwood Addition, northeast Oklahoma City. Is everyone familiar with the situation? What happened here?
No, we're not.
Okay, sir.
Could you succinctly give it to us?
Back in April, there was a high-speed chase on a Saturday night in my neighborhood, resulting in about somewhere between 6 and 12 police cars chasing an individual who had hijacked the car. He hopped the curb and he tore out a large section of the fence around my property. So naturally, I was a little disappointed when I received this letter from your council that said your claim is denied. Not only was I disappointed, I was actually confused, because it says in this letter, the city is not liable to pay any claim for which it is not legally liable. And it then cited the Government Torts Claim Act at certain sections 153. And it cited Title 51 regarding proximate cause and negligence. And it concluded by saying there is no indication that the damage was caused by the negligence of a city employee. And it cited a case 1987. And it cited old case law as well as state law. So that led me, not being an attorney, to do a little research on my own to find out what was going on. And I came up with a number of cases that have occurred since 1987. Specifically, this case here, Supreme Court case decided in July of 2010 called the Gurge opinion. And quote, the idea that the chasing police must hit the criminals or the claimant, in this case my fence, is just not valid. Again in the opinion, it specifically says liability does not depend on proving either of these facts. The duty of care is actually in Title 47, which is not even mentioned in this letter from counsel, and requires an officer not to act in a reckless manner to disregard the safety of others. Members of the council, I request that you send this back to legal counsel for further research and review and approve my claim. Are there any questions?
Well, let's get some advice from staff. What can you tell us about this?
The information that we received was that the suspect that was arrested was the individual who hit the claimant's fence. There's no indication in any of the information that we received that the police were negligent in any way or caused the claimant to collide with the claimant's fence. It just was the claimant who lost control of the vehicle and collided with the claimant's fence.
Okay. Well, with your understanding of state law, do we have discretion on this matter? Does it seem pretty clear that the city cannot pay this claim?
No, cannot pay the claim.
Skip?
The accident, this was a fleeing felon?
Yes, sir.
That was being pursued by the Oklahoma City Police Department?
Yes.
Who hit the property damage? Who caused the property damage? Was the fleeing felon or was it the police department?
It was the fleeing felon.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, I think we do have some discretion. We could find we could believe a different set of facts, and it not be illegal for us to claim this. I mean, if this happened to me, I wouldn't think it'd be my. This is different than a pothole. This is not like a pothole. I mean, this is if they come tore my fence down, I'd be down here just like this gentleman is, trying to figure out a way around this. This is because it's not. It just kind of flies in the face of reason that someone totally innocent, doing nothing wrong, would have to pay the cost of replacing his fence in a situation like this. But for the fact that the police were chasing this person, he wouldn't have hit the fence.
So are you suggesting that the police not chase fleeing felons?
What?
Are you suggesting that the police not chase?
I would suggest, and I have said in the past, I think we chase them too dangerously too often. And I would commend the chief for what he's done in that regard. He has reduced the number of of high-speed chases dramatically based on what he's heard from this horseshoe, I think, and I would commend that. And I would commend the police officers that are starting to act with a little bit more restraint and thinking about it. So I'm not saying we shouldn't chase people. I think we ought to be, I perhaps think we should be more selective. When we enter a neighborhood, I think we've really started to cross the line. This is a residential neighborhood. This is not down a section line street or an arterial street or on a highway. This is in a neighborhood. This is a residential neighborhood. The streets curve. If the speeds were very high at that point, I think we're getting very close to crossing that line here. But that aside, I don't want this to be construed as a criticism of the police department because I don't mean that. But I believe if I were a citizen and this happened and I lived in a residential neighborhood like this neighborhood, I would expect, I think I would expect to be for this to be paid. I think it's part of the cost of the city's doing business. And I'd like to at least take a little bit more of a look at it and look at this case he's brought up.
Perhaps we ought to
at least give it one more shot.
Perhaps it's the claimant ought to sue the felon who ran into his fence.
Well, and that brings me to my point. I cannot understand how a reasonable person would think it was the police department's fault that fence is down, except for the fact the felon doesn't have any money, but the city does. That's the problem I have. That. To me, I mean, obviously you can't blame the police department for somebody. And if they'd done the pit maneuver, threw him into the fence, okay, whatever. But that didn't happen. The suspect hit the fence. It was their choice to flee. They hit the fence. It's their fault. So they should be responsible, except they don't have the $1,050 to fix the fence.
Can I ask?
Well, that's just to hold. This is inside a residential neighborhood. This is not down I-240. This is inside a residential neighborhood. I think there are costs of doing business. The citizens of Oklahoma City, there is a price, but $1 cost.
I understand you're putting yourself in his shoes, but the decision we have to make is representing the city.
Well, that's my point. There is a $1 cost to the citizens of Oklahoma City for things like this that happen. If we expect our police officers to continue to do what they're doing, and I suspect that we expect them to do that, then there's a cost for that. You just can't ignore the consequences of a decision that we make to have them continue to do this.
Well, I mean, I agree with Brian. I think someone is liable, but it's the felon. I mean, as sympathetic as I am to his and his fence, I can imagine what that would be like. I don't see how we can sit here and say that it's a good idea or we're responsible with taxpayer money to pay this claim.
Mr. Mayor, the court decision here recently disagrees. And that's why I'm asking you to look at this. That's all I'm asking. Go back and look at this case. Are you familiar with this case?
No, sir, not offhand.
Thank you.
Well, Ken, before we start attacking our counsel, can we at least have some additional time to look? I got one question, and that is, has this case been prosecuted? Is the individual...
criminal felony has been filed against the individual who he carjacked the vehicle at gunpoint, was the information that our officers received, and took off with the vehicle.
So there's no insurance anyway?
As far as the stolen vehicle, I don't know if the victim's insurance would apply, but I don't know as far as insurance from the suspect.
Potentially, you could make him, in the criminal case, pay restitution.
Could we have, I mean, I would ask that we defer this for a couple of weeks, if there is some law, because we're talking about $1,000, right?
Yes, sir.
He's asking for a couple of weeks for us to look at this particular case to see if it changes our legal opinion, basically. Okay? How about a motion in that regard?
So moved.
Cast your votes on that deferral. It's been deferred 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Thanks, Mr. Delaney. All right. Do we have a motion already on the rest of the claims? How about a motion on the rest of the claims? Cast your votes. This is on item 8S, and those claims are denied. Item 9 is claims recommended for approval. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 10 is items from council. Gary, you have anything to start us off?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but I just want to welcome back Councilman Walters from his duty. Tell him how much I appreciate his service. Military service to me is one of the highest forms of community service you can do, or service to the country, and I really applaud him for doing it and setting an example of it's never too late to serve your country. I don't know how you did physically, but it's never too late to serve your country, and I applaud what you did, Brian, and welcome back.
All right. Sam?
Second Gary's applause, Brian. Mayor, I attended last week the initial session on the hub study. It's the Jacobs Consulting firm. All indications that I've gotten and heard is this firm is probably the best in the business. And we have them at the right time because of the economy to have the best. And just on a quick overview, we heard some preliminary report from them. It's a 9-month study. It's underway, be completed by the end of June, I think is their indication. They're partnering with a local architectural firm so that they've got their feet on the ground here. It's the hub, as they see it, of course, is going to be the centerpiece of a regional transit system. But they are looking at the local connectivity in every way conceivable, and not just the short-range 2 to 3 year fix, but they're looking 5 to 25 years down the road. They're also looking at that site that is going to create the capacity for economic development. I didn't understand until they showed some just signs of other communities have worked in where the economic development, this has been a catalyst for economic development. I just heard enough in the initial report to bring it to the council and suggest at some point in the near future just a brief from the podium update from Jacobs or perhaps ACOG to just keep us abreast of where this is going. It's on schedule, it's on time, and it looks really to be the right people, and I think it'd be good for us to hear from them.
Okay. Glad you brought that up. Pete?
Just one thing. I hate to bring this up again, but at the workshop last time, I gave an example of what I consider to be a lack of attention to the public's concerns about how long it takes to do projects, and where a small problem with a curb out on Draper Drive had been a whole half of the street was cordoned off, blocked off, and with the signs out said work in progress and workers ahead. That was a week ago. It had already been going on. The sign that was out the weekend before that, it has not been touched since then. There's absolutely no reason to put the sign up and cause a situation that could cause a serious injury in an unlighted stretch of road and then not finish the job. I mean, it just makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And I thought the little, hopefully well-intentioned remarks I made last week would have got it fixed or got the barricades taken down, one, but obviously neither happened.
That would be addressed.
As I came to work this morning, it's still in the same situation. And I really wasn't going to say anything about it until I went down Reno and in front of the La Luna restaurant and noticed on their marquee today the sign says 3 months with a question mark. And I know what that means. That they mean they were told it would take 3 months to fix that street, and it's been longer than 3 months. It's not, I've said a lot, and all of us have had this experience. There's the crescendo of complaints you get about street repairs are while the street's being repaired. It's kind of an unfortunate circumstance. You never get very many comments after it's finished. You get some before it's worked on, but the high watermark for constituent complaints is while we're actually doing something, and that's always seemed kind of ironic. But to some extent, I can understand it, because when the project starts, people have an expectation it's going to get over with, and sometimes they ask us, and we tell them, and then it doesn't happen, and that frustration I think is, and I I'm sharing some of mine here this morning, because the project I saw out along the Lake Road is a minor project. It existed without barricades for 3 months this summer. Not even barricades, just there. Finally, a complaint was made about it, and 2 little barricades were put up, but they didn't block the street. I guess now a work order's been put out, and whoever got the work order, as soon as they got the work order, blocked off half the street. And it's not fixed yet. So we ought to either put the barricade back over where it's supposed to be or fix it.
All right.
We hear you.
Brian?
Well, thank you to Mary and Sam and everyone for their support. It was definitely a humbling experience to go from civilian life to a life where there's a lot of people yelling at you all the time for doing stuff you thought you were supposed to be doing. But, I couldn't have done it without the support of my family, obviously, in this council. And I don't think I could ever put it into words how much I appreciate the support I received here. I know that while I was gone, Debbie Martin did a fabulous job handling some of the stuff that needed to be handled. But all in all, it was definitely a great experience. Physically, I held my own with both males and females half my age. So, but it was something that definitely gives you a different perspective on life. I left on the 26th of July and arrived in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri on that Friday. Spent 2.5 months there and graduated from basic on Thursday. And leaving the gates of a military installation like that after basic was one of the best days of my life. So I never thought I'd be so glad to be back at a council meeting. But again, just eternal thank yous to everybody around this horseshoe and everybody in the office. So.
What's your rank, Brian?
I'm a specialist.
I bet you didn't celebrate the way those young kids did when you made that day.
No. Most of them had other obligations they had to continue. I was able to leave. So no, it was, but it was definitely a celebration being able to come back home and just be with wife and kids. So thanks very much.
Skip?
Well, Brian, again, I would concur with the comments from Councilman Mars. I think that is a very, very high, respect in reference to your commitment to do that at the age in which you are. And so I agree with all the other words that's been stated. And we are glad to have you back so we don't have to answer for you. But I would like to ask that some of our streets, and we have noticed in the last 3 or 4 weeks that there's been some pedestrians who've been killed on some of these major corridors. And in my ward, and I think it was Northwest, 10-year-old child was killed 2 weeks ago. And this past Friday, 2 individuals in wheelchairs trying to get access to a grocery store from one of the senior citizen residential facilities on Martin Luther King. Both of them was hit by motorists at the corner of 23rd and Martin Luther King. And I have made an open commitment since day one of coming on this council that I wanted to be part of the change of Northeast 23rd Street for development, for the appearance, and for the safety of citizens. And I'm asking that our police department, traffic, whatever we could do to put more posting, if it means enforcement. There are people who take 23rd Street as if it is a drag race, area to just speed up and down. And these are people, there are people over there that have no other means of access to necessities but getting to the grocery store. They have physical disabilities, and I'm asking that we have, a look at that area to do whatever is necessary for the continued enforcement to prevent somebody else from being killed over there on those intersections. And the other is yesterday, this state has lost one of the greatest jurors that I think we've ever had in jurisprudence, and we lost Justice Marion Opalo. And we all know that he has been a part of a lot of social changes by way of his involvement with the legal profession, and some of the greatest opinions has been written by him on the Oklahoma Supreme Court. And so not only in Oklahoma, but he's recognized all over the United States. And so our heart goes out to his son and all the other friends and all of those who have been a part of Justice Opala's life.
Pat?
Your Honor, I'd like to thank you for the any part you had in bringing Angela Munson here this morning. I thought that was very helpful and an important first step in the relationship, improving relationship between the City Council and our school administration to further better education. So thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from her again on some kind of periodic basis so we can be informed of the progress that she's making on some very ambitious, very exciting plan.
And I do hope we have some council participation in her offer to be a part of the planning process, because I think she and Superintendent Springer have some changes in mind. Well, we have executive session. Oh, I skipped city manager reports. James, do you have anything you want to bring our attention to?
We have the sales and use tax collection report in there, and it's much the same information that was gone over in the workshop. We do have a regional outdoor warning system policy that is a draft that we'd very much appreciate any input or comments that you may have. Get those to M.T. Berry, that we would certainly appreciate anything you might have to offer on that topic.
Okay.
Jim, are we still of the mindset that the increases in sales tax are heavily weighted toward the storms? Is that still our view?
At this point, yes, sir. I think that is a significant driver. It seems to be tailing off some, but
the percentage of tax went up. Percentage increase over a year ago went up. We're not ready to say this is a good thing yet. I mean, this is just an aberration.
I think we're on the edge of thinking that it's a good thing.
Okay.
On the edge, I think we got to be real careful, not get overly optimistic. We've seen some improvements, but we compare it to last year. Remember, last year was a pretty poor year. So any improvement would be if you just look at last year.
Well, actually, this month doesn't compare only well to last year. It compares to 2 years ago very well.
Which again, was probably not one of our better years. Go back to 2007, I think, before we make comparisons. Good year to what we've seen now. I'm just cautious in my mind that we don't go too fast and assume that we've got a trend established. I would be comfortable at the end of the half of the fiscal year, December or January, if we see these continued results, to maybe assume that we're out of the woods. But I don't think we ought to jump too soon just because we've had some good months.
I would like to know the dollar number of excess of over budget that it would take. You know, we talk about we cut back so far, so we know that that's from what we cut back to where we cut back from. We know what that number is. But there were amounts in the previous year's budget that were paid out of fund balance and by transfers. I'd like to know the total amount of that. So it seems to me that's a reasonable target to shoot for, is when the excess of this year's budget, if it gets to that number. Am I making sense?
No, absolutely. You're saying where we'd be flat.
Yeah, where we'd be flat, because it's not just enough to compare the percentage increase, because we used money in the fiscal 10 budget that came out of fund balance and from other sources that don't replenish themselves. So we just took money that we transferred money. So I'd like to know what the total is of that. So because that's the number where we're flat, I think.
And we did it the same thing in fiscal year 11. This current year's budget has some one-time monies in it.
Right.
So we need to recognize that as well.
All those one-time amounts, all those fund balance amounts, plus the cut, I'd like to know how much we have to, what that increase has to be in order to get to that point.
Yes.
Mayor, while Jim's taking Skip's request to address the 23rd and Martin Luther King safety issue. That high-volume intersection, could you specifically have traffic look at the capacity in that signal, that current signalization, if they can put in if it has the capacity to put in a pedestrian light there, that pause or whatever that is, that traffic, I use it occasionally, Skip, is just way too fast at that intersection. And there's just too much commotion at that intersection not to want to slow it down some.
All right.